Pardon? You do have every.
Yes, we do have everybody here. Thank you.
Okay, then I think we'll call the meeting to order. So before I turn the meeting over to Sarah, we are going to have the election of the chair and the vice chair. I just wanted to let people know this is actually normally held in January, and it will actually have to be re-elected in January as well, because that's what's under the Police Services Act. But my appointment as a member of the board will be expiring this weekend. So we're going to move to do the appointment today, and then you can reconfirm in January. So I am now going to turn it over to Sarah.
Hello. Hello, everyone can hear me there?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I'm at this time going to call for nominations for the position of chair for the board for the remainder of 2020. So if there's any nominations.
I'll nominate Greg Ferguson.
Are you willing to stand, Greg?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any further nominations? No. And are all in favor of this motion?
In favor?
Yes.
Favor. Okay, the motion is carried. And now I'm going to call for nominations for the position of vice chair for the remainder of 2020.
I'll nominate Robert Thompson.
Is there any other nominations? And Councillor Thompson, are you willing to stand?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And are all in favor of this motion? And the nominations are closed.
Okay, and so we're going to turn the chair over to Greg, and he'll carry out the rest of the meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Angela. I assume we'll see you back in January to be more appropriately recognized for your significant contribution to the service. 8 years is a long time, so we look forward to having you back in January to be, as I say, more appropriately recognized. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Greg.
A motion to approve the agenda. Mayor Lehman, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Seeing none, a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting of November the 19th, 2020.
So moved.
Mayor Lehman.
Seconded.
Turn it over to you, Chief, to introduce to us Sergeant Van Schuberg.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Can you see our newly promoted, as in October, Daryl Van Schuberg? Just so everybody's aware, he was born. Can you see him, or
we can see him from the neck down. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay, there. Perfect. Wonderful. Daryl was born and raised in the city of Barrie. He has 3 children, 23, 20, and 17 years of age. He began his policing career in Toronto in December of 1998. Not shortly after, in 2000, he joined the Barrie Police Service. He has worked in many different capacities within our organization. He's spent 12 years in various areas in our criminal investigation area, and he spent a couple of years in our community response also. He was successful during the promotional process, and in October he was promoted to sergeant, and this is the first opportunity that he has had to be presented to the board. So we offer him congratulations, and we look forward to his continued work with the Barrie Police Service. So thank you very much, Daryl. Okay, and we're just going to do a photo at with our masks, the very different times we find ourselves in. So how about you stand there and you can pick up our masks. Great, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sergeant, on behalf of the board, congratulations and thank you for your continued service. The consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like pulled from the consent agenda?
During the update in regards to SIU, I can provide an update during the SIU or in the chief's update, or would you like it pulled and I can talk to it at this time?
Might as well address it at this time, Chief, if we could.
Okay, one moment. In the board package, you would have received a document that was authored by Acting and Deputy Chief Rob Burke. He was not able to be with us today. He is participating in a Police Services Act and Adjudicators course that is running for the week. In the report, there are some highlights of the changes to the Special Investigation Unit Act. One of the most prominent things that we have found beneficial to members of our service and those officers across the province is that the SIU is now to report publicly on investigations that take more than 120 days to be completed and release further updates every 30 days thereafter. So I think that will have a significant impact on our service. And when you look at your regular professional standards update, you will note the SIU investigations have taken up to 2.5 years. So I'm hoping that we see some changes in regards to that. Also, you will note that the SIU is now a fully independent agency and they will investigate conduct of officials, which are now turned police officers, special constables that are employed by Ontario Parks Commission, and peace officers with the Legislative Protective Service. So you will note that our special constables with the Barrie Service are not governed under the Special Investigations Unit Act. So those investigations in regards to the conduct will be maybe as a result of death, serious injury, sexual assault, or the discharge of a firearm at a person. The Act restricts the SIU to conduct on-duty investigations or conduct, except for when the official, which I indicate as police officers, etc., are engaged in an investigation, pursuit, detention, or arrest of a person, whether the official intended to exercise such powers or identify themselves as a police officer, or if the incident involves equipment or other property issued to the police officer or peace officer in relation to his or her duties. One of the other changes you will note that we had, as peace officers and police officers, we had a duty to cooperate with SIU investigations. It is now changed to duty to comply, and there is an indication that all officials or peace officers must comply with all reasonable direction and request issued by the SIU in relation to an investigation, unless it is unlawful or impractical to do so. Additionally, police services are responsible for ensuring that incident scenes are protected. And in the past, we have seized evidence or been involved in processing of the crimes with the support of the SIU. We are now, to ensure that there is public confidence in the SIU, we are being directed now not to be directly involved in the evidence gathering unless there's a need to do so if evidence is going to be destroyed or damaged if we are waiting for the SIU to arrive on scene. I think that Chair Ferguson, you had asked some questions in regards to Section 11. Section 11 in the old Act required police services to conduct an investigation around the compliance to our policies, procedures, board bylaws to ensure that our members outside of the SIU investigation complied with what we have in place as a service. So that section has been revoked under the new regulations, but there is still a recommendation from the SIU director that we continue to do those investigations if it is necessary. It's no longer mandatory to do that. So those are the highlights in regards to the changes in the SAU Act that came into effect on December 1st of this year. We have reviewed our procedures in regards to that and our practices, and we were prepared a year and a half ago when some of these changes were to be enacted, but we did not need to change our procedures at this point because everything is in place for us.
Great, thank you, Chief. Arf?
Thank you, Chief. Just a question. Now that the police service is directed to both, one, comply, but two, also, if I'm understanding correctly, to stand down or to not participate actively in evidence gathering in an appropriate or so described event, is it more along the lines of if there's a exposure to the elements or whatever, that you're there to preserve and protect but not to gather? And if so, what impact can you foresee in terms of, I don't know what the response time is for the SIU to get from wherever they are to Barrie to whatever scene. So how would you see that impacting your service, personnel, HR, that kind of thing?
So I would say that we have an SIU liaison officer with the Barrie Police Service that works directly with from out of executive services that continuously liaise with SIU on past investigations, current investigations. So I will see that relationship and practices still being in place, and there will be that communication to ensure that we are doing what can be done to support the SIU in securing a scene, for example, and it will be very much about the relationships that we've built and the direction that is provided from the SIU. I do not think that this is really going to significantly change our practices right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other questions from members? I can certainly, you know, in the time I've been around, Chief, seen the change in the timing with respect to the conclusion of the investigations. They were dragging on pretty long, and it's nice to see that part of it has sped up. In the package, there is under number 12 an appointment of two new auxiliary members, Nathan Greer and Derek Schroers. Have a motion to approve their appointment. Thank you. Included in the package is there are some board subcommittee terms of reference. A couple of these terms of reference being the ad hoc and the collective bargaining existed before, they just weren't formalized in terms of reference. So we've always had ad hoc committees and we've always had a collective bargaining committee. So that's not new, other than the formalization of the terms of reference. What is new is the budget subcommittee and the policy and bylaw subcommittee. So those are two committees that previously didn't exist, that we think we should have subcommittees to deal with some of the specific details rather than dealing with it always at the board level. So that was the purpose of those two subcommittees. I'll open up the floor for any questions or comments. Mayor Lehman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Is the anticipated membership literally just the two members of the board with support from members of the service and I'm here referring specifically to the Budget Committee and the Collective Bargaining Committee. I think that's how we have operated in the past.
Certainly, the collective bargaining committee has always been the chair and the vice chair.
Yeah.
So that is consistent with respect to budget. We're proposing, or in the terms of reference, the chair and one other member. That still represents a substantial portion of our board of only being 5, having 2 on the on that committee. Obviously, if someone wants to, that's a minimum as part of the terms of reference. As many, we could have as many as 5 outside the terms of reference, I think. But
yeah, and are the meetings? And I forgot, but I assume the meetings are open to all members of the board, but you only have 2 voting members, if you will.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're even voting members, Mr. Mayor. They're going to make a recommendation to the board as to what needs to be done. But I think they're just more for detailed information and allowing for greater background rather than at the actual board meeting. I think that is the intent, is to drill down perhaps a little more in review with our, with Nancy or our financial services in terms of detail and maybe be able to answer some questions in advance.
Okay, and I guess the general comment I would make is, there's always, when you start to get into subcommittees of boards, there's always the issue of what work appropriately belongs at a subcommittee and what work appropriately is at a board meeting with the participation of the full board. I think if we have a way of operating that says, when we need a deep dive on a particular issue, it can be referred to one of the committees, and then any member of the board can attend the committee. I think that is a good way to allow for more time, for more work in between full board meetings and so forth. I think one of the challenges you've always got with the reference committee is the risk of duplicating the work. You give a presentation at committee, then you give the same presentation at the board, and often some of the same issues are addressed. So I guess what I'm wondering, I don't think we necessarily need to change the terms of reference. I like that we're formalizing them and creating a permanent budget committee, for example. I think in terms of how we operate, if the intention is going to be, as we do, for example, with city council, to use the reference committees as the workshop of the board, then I hope our practice will be that we can attempt to schedule meetings so that all board members might attend, for example. Now, that's, to me, much more important for like a budget committee than a collective bargaining committee. To be frank, collective bargaining is something where there's a lot of back and forth. There can be need for short but very important meetings of the team, and you don't need the whole board, nor is it helpful to have the rest of the board involved. In fact, it's probably counterproductive. However, with something like a budget committee, and even from time to time like a policy committee, I think that's where, I read the terms of reference for the budget committee. It's envisioned to meet 3 times a year. I think, scheduling those 3 meetings, at least giving the opportunity for all board members to attend, for example, that would be wise, because I think in that kind of subcommittee, we have the opportunity to workshop some issues that might not otherwise be able to get the time that we want to spend in a board meeting. So that's really more by way of operationalizing these committees in the new year. But my only other comment was great work on whoever wrote the terms of reference, because I think they fit what's appropriate and useful for this point in terms of the board's work.
Mr. Mayor, do you think it would be appropriate under the budget subcommittee membership to add the words and any other member who so chooses to?
I think that only becomes important when you're starting to actually vote at committee, and there's the potential for, a membership on a committee to, make decisions that really should be made by the whole board. So if our intention really is as a workshop, and it's not the case where you know, in the worst, you have to, I mean, it's like with any legal agreement or bylaws of a corporation, you trust everybody's going to do a good job, but what happens in the weird case where we have some kind of breakdown in communication or difference of opinion? You know, the situation that I would want to avoid would be that, for example, something gets brought to committee and the two members that are on the committee happen to feel it shouldn't go up to the board, and then it dies at committee. Whereas, you know, if you brought it to the full board, it might have been something that the full board was interested in. I can't imagine that happening with our group of individuals, but I've certainly been on boards where it has. And over the years, as the membership changes of the board, you just want to build a structure that prevents any problems. So my view is this, Mr. Chair, I think you don't have to actually add people as formal members. I think we just need a statement that says any board member is welcome to attend a meeting of the budget committee or something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, yeah, I agree with your comment about, you know, suppressing information at committee level, and, you know, purposely the chief and deputy and financial manager are going to be are part of the committee too. So there is the ability for someone to step up and say, you know, I don't think we're getting all the facts here. So can I have a motion then to approve the terms of reference for the four subcommittees?
I'll move that.
Robert? Thank you. And then in January, we will name, as part of our process of chair and vice chair, will be the members to each of those committees. So that will be automatic every January of the year. Included in the package is a new bylaw with bylaw number 10 with respect to board training. Again, for the most part, this has occurred in the past. It's just a matter of formalizing it to make it clear as to what training processes a new board member will go through. We've had a number of new, and we're obviously will have another new member shortly. So that was the purpose of number 14. So any questions on the bylaw, Mayor Lehman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's actually a great list. I'm assuming that we would make the effort to try and have all of those listed meetings as one group or back to back for the new member, that we're not requiring a new member to do 8 or 9 separate meetings, but rather to come to BPS, come to the First Responders Campus, and have the opportunity to meet with staff as they move through a single orientation session. Okay, I'm seeing nods, then that's great. I think that's very comprehensive onboarding, and it's good to formalize it. So thanks for this as well.
Any other comments or questions? A motion to approve? Arf. Mayor Lehman, thank you. Updates, Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. Chief, I'll let you take it initially. Vice Chair, it's now the chair. I sit on the committee with the mayor, and I can advise you things are moving forward quickly. I'm with the mayor, sorry, with the chief. Chief, you want to comment, please?
Before I begin, I would just like you to, and I'm not sure if you can see in the room, we have Staff Sergeant Val Gates with us. And I will say that if it was not for Val, this would not be in this prime shape that it currently is. Val is the driving force behind the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, not just as a representative for the Barrie Police Service, but for the whole city of Barrie and all of the service partners to get us where we are today. So I just wanted to publicly thank Val for all her work, amazing contributions in regards to this area. So thank you very much, Val, and I'll focus in on, this is not much different than what the board has seen in the past. There are just a few areas that I would like to draw your attention to. Is that the insertion of the Barrie Health Accord has been included as under number 2 in the package now. This is something that whether we had a community safety or well-being plan, this was something that was put in motion by the mayor as the champion, and we have multiple partners, including the Barrie Police Service, to implement this 10-year plan. So the community safety and well-being plan is specific for a number of years. It doesn't hit 10, but I can see that this will continue year over year and to be included in the community safety and well-being plan for our city. I'd like to also draw your attention to number 6 on the chart, the Excel spreadsheet, and that speaks to some of the challenges that we're having within our community and identifying leads to this. And I think this is something that you have addressed, Chair. There's not everything that the Barrie Police should be leading, but it is very important to the service in CNHA to ensure that we're identifying and implementing actions that will increase access to individuals that are vulnerable and suffering from mental health, because this will definitely impact the overall safety for individuals, families, and neighborhoods. To ensure that we have the right individuals leading this along with the respective partners. Also, number 9, we have spoken to this in the past, but just wanted to remind the board members that through the mayor's office led by Mayor Lehman, the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force, I know that the terms of reference and committee membership is still in works, but I think knowing the flavor, not just within the city of Barrie, but across the country in regards to systemic racism, this will be a key theme that will speak to legitimacy and communication with members of our community. The other item that I would like to bring attention to is number 13 in regards to the city of Barrie and the county of Simcoe advancing issues in relation to homelessness. So we have had extensive meetings and conversations with the county of Simcoe, and we'll continue to work in that area. So those are the ones that I wanted to bring your attention to, and it will be brought forward to the committee level for their final approval. So right now the concept has been approved. We need to seek formal approval of this. It will go to council probably in February with a staff report making recommendations that the council approved the community safety well-being report. We know that the final report does not have to go into effect until the following year, but we would like, if we have something concrete, we would like to move forward on it without the legislative requirements, because this is good for our community. Val, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. We've given the members till today at 11 o'clock just for any feedback or any tweaks, and hopefully we'll be ready to get that out by tomorrow.
Thanks very much, Val.
Thanks, Chief. If I see your hand before I open up the questions, I'll just provide my comments as a member of the committee. I think the chief has underestimated the contribution to this committee of the Barrie Police Service, and as noted specifically, Staff Sergeant Gates. All you need to do is to look at, there's obviously 15 action plans. 9 of them are either led by the Barrie Police Services or our partners in action plans. So there has been major leadership by the police service, and in discussions previously, you may recall that we were concerned that we didn't want this to be a police initiative, but a partnership. But clearly, we have taken the lead. Clearly, in my opinion, we wouldn't be where we are without the police service. Arif?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certain comments are accurate. I think it goes to show the effectiveness of the organization of a police service. Number of the parties or the partners probably would wish for the full-time dedication and training and expertise of the resources that we have available in the police service. So I think this just is a natural evolution, but certainly congratulations where due. I do have a question, and it's more of just a timely one in terms of what we're seeing in neighboring municipality in Toronto regarding homelessness as we are getting into colder weather and as we do have challenges. I know we have partner hotels that are working with, for example, Busby for housing and accommodation, but I'm curious, does the city of Barrie, Mr. Mayor, and does the police service chief see any trends towards some of these pop-up shelters that appear to be making the news in terms of insulated tents and sort of encampments coming back? I don't want to call it popular, that's inappropriate, but you know, more regular occurrence of pop-up shelters. And do you have any comment on that?
Do you wish me to go first, Mayor Lehman, or do you wish to make a comment?
Sure, why don't you go ahead and then I can add a few comments, Chief.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khan. The community response unit has been working daily, regularly with all our service partners that deal with the vulnerable sector, specifically the homelessness. And it's not just the homelessness, that it's also the addiction. So I'm not saying anything that the board members are not aware of, but we work very closely with the service providers. We have been involved with the city and the county, specifically on the joint approach as we work through the summer and some of the challenges that we had in regards to what I will call encampments. This is not unique to the city of Barrie. We are part of a multi-sectoral approach to the issue. Encampments is not something that I recommend. I just don't think it's humane to have people out in the winter living in encampments. I think there are other alternatives available, but it is not just a Barrie police response. It is a wraparound response from all of those involved. The agencies, the county that's responsible for the funding of these vulnerable, I think with the introduction of Lucy's Place, we've seen the positive approach of that. The George and Green residence has been delayed a little bit. We have information to indicate that 24 people have been identified to move in, but there's just been a delay in that process. And I believe it's based on some of the corporate issues such as insurance for that to occur, but it is being worked on. Val and I have spent significant time with the county on the community safety and well-being plan, and we have addressed with the county some of the concerns that we have had in regards to the encampments, but it's not something that has been supported by the county, the encampment piece, but we'll keep on top of that, and we do respond to calls for service related to encampments.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, you know, notwithstanding the additional time that I gave by emergency order to deal with the situation at Milligan's Pond, I think that was never believed to be a permanent service model that we thought was safe. I think the concern around encampments, there are a number of them, the practical things like fires and sanitation, but of course COVID as well. And the advice we've had from public health is it's obviously very difficult, particularly in a winter, to keep people safe in any way, both from a, you know, the conditions point of view and COVID. So all effort from the county's side has been, and that was a county decision, but certainly one that I agree with, all effort has been to provide individual or separated housing on an emergency basis to get people indoors who can come in. Yeah, the Georgian Green thing needs to happen quickly because the capacity concerns with the motel are going to become an issue, and I'm hoping that all of that can be sorted out very, very quickly. But the city is supporting the county, as we always do, in funding the agencies and providing operational support to the agencies. Those by county, ultimately county council, but by county staff rather than by any city staff. But where, of course, it does come in is by law enforcement. And I think, as the chief said, whether it was in the summer or the people who continue to attempt to try and sleep outdoors, always, whether it's bylaw, police, county staff, everybody takes a help people get into services approach rather than a enforcement approach. Notwithstanding, we do have bylaws that have to be ultimately enforced.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions on the Community Safety Wellbeing Committee? Okay, Grand, thanks, Chief. Thanks, Staff Sergeant Gates, for that. Chief, your verbal update, please.
Thank you. Sarah is just going to put some information on the screen. We have a PowerPoint presentation, but is occurring. I know that we will recognize Angela Lockridge for her work, but I would just like to say a personal thank you to Angela for her support and guidance as a chief. And then on behalf of the organization, we appreciate the work that you have done since 2012 to enhance and modernize our service. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. So we'll start with the chief's update, providing a COVID update, which has been intermingled through many of our conversations today or items for discussion. We continue with our emergency control group, and I would say there was a little bit of a lull for a short period of time, but with the changes that we have seen south of us, it's traveling up to the city of Barrie, so we have ramped up our response to matters in our community. As a result of some increasing change, the Police Operations Center, we don't have a physical location where we were using the community room in the past. We did decommission that, but we continue to have our regular meetings. I'm very pleased to report that of our 92 tests that have occurred for our members, they have all returned negative. So we're all very fortunate in regards to that. And we have seen a notable change in our turnaround times. We had one that was within 24 hours. On average, it's about 42. In the past, we had seen as high as 72 hours, but we've seen a significant change in that. In regards to the Quarantine Act, we are working with the OPP through Canada Border Services and the RCMP to monitor and manage those individuals that have been directed and required to self-isolate as a result of travel. So if we do, it is based on a snapshot in time. So yesterday it was reported that we had one person that was at a level 1, which is the high risk, and both level 2 and level 3 in the city of Barrie, we had 46 individuals in each of those categories. So we do changes or checks when required and directed for those individuals. We have reported in the past the cost of the COVID on our organization, and I can say that we have had to purchase limited operating supplies because we sit with significant PPEs for our membership. We've seen no change in the last few months in regards to our capital expenditures. We still see a decrease in our general revenue, and our reduction in secondments has evened out. We have seen no changes there from previous months. We still see a reduction in our gasoline cost, and it's a balance between the market, the competitive market right now, but we did see less usage of our mileage on our vehicles during the first or the second quarter of the year. And we still can see a reduction in our overtime costs. So the impact to the organization is just over $250,000 in regards to our response from a financial perspective. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you very much. So this is a new slide that we haven't provided to the board in the past. This is something that Sergeant Tallarico has put together, and I thought it would be illustrative of what we are responding to in the community from our CAD calls for service, which is on the left-hand side. So those are that's identifying the top 20 calls that we have seen in the month of November. Like just noted down on the bottom, the changes that we're seeing specific to a call that comes into our service that is specifically identified as a mental health call. I will say that many of the other calls on the top 20 have some impact on mental health in our community, but these are the separate ones. So if you go back to 17, 18, and 19, it's around 40 specific calls for service on mental health. And in 2020, this year, we saw 70 just in the month of November. But we're seeing significant changes in our community in regards to mental health. And this is just illustrative. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Something that so when we look at the just over 5,400 calls for service, that doesn't include the ones that we get through our alternative response or individuals that are reporting online through our COP Logic tools. And we're seeing an increase in our use in COP Logic over the last few years, and we'll continue to promote this as an alternative for members to report crimes in our community. But what is most interesting, I'd like to draw your attention to the right-hand side of the slide, and that speaks to the calls for services or calls that come into the Barrie Police Service. So in 1 month, we have had over 10,000 contacts with members of our community over the telephone. So some of them are part of the CAD calls for service, but if you can see that we have had individuals that call into our service for non-emergency calls, whether it be through our alternative response or people calling into our front desk or station duty to ask for advice and guidance. We have our regular calls, non-emergency calls through communications, which is just under 5,800 calls for service. And then on our 911 lines, we have just under 2,500 calls for service. So I thought this would just be an illustration that would be of interest to you. And this is what was developed from Sergeant Tallarico. Also, if we think of the presentation to council on inside the call, we spoke to criminal charges federal charges that were laid by members of the police service in regards to that one specific call. So this is an illustration of federal charges. So it's just the top 10, and we had 389 charges laid. I will say that this is illustrative because depending on where a matter is within our system, there could be some changes. If we did a final year end, it may not be totally reflective of it, but at least it's illustrative of the different offenses that we're seeing charges laid. So we still see impaired driving. We still are seeing they fail to comply with probation, and some of the other piece is the drug activity in our community and the use of weapons in our community. Instead of providing a whole massive list of notable calls for service as we did the last few months, I'm just going to highlight a few here. We continue in our community at our local grocery stores. This one here, we had someone enter a convenience store. There was assault against the clerk. They were slapped. And the suspect was identified after the event and was arrested and charged with a robbery and disguised with intent offenses. Reopening Ontario Act, we work very closely with the Simcoe Muskoka Public Health Unit. There was a scheduled large event, a bodybuilding competition at one of our local hotels, with other hotels housing individuals that would be competing in the competition. We attended with public health to this hotel, and we were able to close down this event. We're still seeing violence in our community. We had assault with a weapon call. We were provided information that was a male party was striking a youth with a baseball bat, and as a result of a large group of youth fighting, police were able to locate the suspect vehicle, and the suspect did flee on foot when we arrived. Our K9 unit was called in for a tract, and the suspect was located, arrested with the offense of assault with a weapon, and will be appearing before the courts to answer to that charge. I did specifically speak to the mental health issues in our community, and we traditionally do not present it in this forum, but we've had a couple, well, several, and they're noted here, suicide attempts by individuals. And the work that our officers do in resolving these matters and using the skills and training that they have provided, we've been able to assist. The first one there, we were able to assist a female who wished to jump over the railings over the 400. We were able to apprehend her successfully, and she was provided the resources that she needed at RVH. The other sudden death was an individual who had been engaging in illicit drugs, and he had been provided 2 doses of Narcan by a friend. We, with the deployment of our Narcan, if you recall, we've had that for a couple of years now. Our members applied Narcan and performed CPR while we waited for paramedics to arrive. Sadly, this individual succumbed to though, and we have another individual that is in hospital also recovering from the use of illicit drugs, even though we've had the opportunity to deliver Narcan. So we're seeing it in our community. The other suicidal male was an individual that had climbed a tower and was threatening suicide. Police were able to arrive on scene, and we were able to apprehend him and transport him to the hospital to receive support as needed. We have assisted the Simcoe Police Service with the use of our robot at a barricaded suspect in a resident. I will say that it was helpful to use our tools, and we do support each other in the province when we have specialized equipment. The male was successfully apprehended. I'll just speak to one other that's on the list. We had we were receiving multiple calls for service in regards to a suspicious person, and when we arrived on scene, we located both a male and female, and during the interaction, we located airsoft guns, knives and heroin in their possessions, and they were arrested on the weapons charges and the drug charges. I have spoken already to the Special Investigation Act and the impacts of the legislation coming into effect on December the 1st. So this legislation, we are prepared to respond to this. In regards to Next Generation 911, recalling that in 2020, we designated just over $500,000 in our capital to support our ability to respond to the changes in the CRTC legislation, that we had to have a new system in place. And then for next year in our proposed budget, we have $235,000 put in place. So there has been a delay in this year in the utilization of the funds put aside due to COVID, but we have identified the software and the equipment for this, and we will be implementing the changes in the beginning of the year utilizing this equipment. I do sit on the Next Generation 911 Interagency Advisory Panel, and we have been working with the Ministry of the Solicitor General in regards to what the provincial approach is going to be. We did submit a letter, and we are asking that there is to be a long-term sustainable funding source, whether that be the province creating legislation to create a levy. And that levy would cover costs for the new technology and then the ongoing operational costs associated with the new system. We're also requesting that there be provincial strategic and implementation plan. So we do know that the legislation with the CRTC covers the technology, but we need to, we know that the changes are going to transform the public safety answering ports. So we need to have standard operational procedures for the public safety ports, and for how we dispatch calls also. From an education perspective, we're looking at standardizing public education, and we also need to have standardized training for all first responders on this matter. Today is the Human Rights Day across the country, and I'm not sure if you recall, some of you may not have been alive in 1968, but there were significant changes in the criminal code around the decriminalization of homosexuality activity. And I would say that as the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, along with other associations across the country, we are working at ensuring that policing prioritizes equity, diversity, and inclusion. And there have been, I would say, we recognize that there needs to be, we need to take responsibility for leading systemic changes within our respective services, but we also need to publicly acknowledge and the opposition that was placed in 1967 with the changes to the criminal code. And we hope that that this apology will assist as we make progress in regards to the rights of two-spirited lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and individuals. And we know and recognize that there needs to be calls for change across the country and around the world have been significant, but this is just a step forward for police services across the country to offer this apology for different times, but it's important that we do this. So I just thought I would raise this in our presentation today. And there are just a couple of things that we would like to bring to everybody's attention in regards to our support in our succession planning. On December the 3rd, we had 3 inspectors, Johnson, Dewsnap, and McLean, along with Staff Sergeant Fioron, Richter, and Moore, graduated from a 10-week online program through the Rotman School of Business. They successfully were involved in multiple projects, and it was 3 days per week for 10. So they all graduated, so we're pleased in regards to that, and we'll see a transfer of their academic knowledge to some of the operational things that in our organization. On December the 3rd, I had the opportunity to speak before Honorable Marion Monsef and the Honorable Bill Blair in regards to women and gender equality. And it was a very exciting presentation. I had the opportunity to speak about the need for implementing the intimate partner violence framework along with the sexual violence framework in the action plan across the country. I also did speak to Claire's Law and Sarah's Law, and looking at the importance of changing the criminal code to include coercive control specific to intimate partner violence. So I have volunteered and have been selected to sit on a task force in regards to that. So I will be bringing forth further updates as they occur. On November the 30th, very fondly, we sent off Shirley Dunn as a communicator for our service with 28 years, and her platoon highlighted as she walked out of the door at approximately 6:30 on the 30th with flares, her car all brushed off of snow, and she was escorted to her car, and she had a send off with our cruisers as her last shift. So it was, we don't often see a communicator retiring after 28 years. So it was a little part of our history. We had significant events happening even in the COVID times. We're being very innovative in regards to how we can recognize and promote some of the programs that we normally participate in. And I think that many of you would have seen on the news or in social media the repatriation of Constable Hoving as he traveled from Toronto through the city of Barrie up to his resting place in Manitoulin Island. Several of us had the opportunity to attend OPP headquarters to view the funeral service on behalf of the Barrie Police Service. So that was an honor to participate with that. We usually run our annual Lock It or Lose It campaign. We usually set up at Georgian College or our Go parking lots. This year, we did it by not placing cards on people's vehicles, but did provide an education and awareness to the campaign. And we also did the annual Salvation Army kickoff just in a different manner. And a couple of other things we continue to participate in our front lobby in a very controlled fashion. We have individuals able to drop off letters to Santa. We have our traditional mitten tree. We have our gifts for our seniors and the annual boot drive that we provide. The photos that you see are the kickoff that we did at the Toys R Us store on Bayfield on September the 5th. We filled the rescue one with donations, and it was very significant to see how supportive the community are for those less fortunate. And then you haven't had the opportunity to see the joy of the holiday season with our doors, but Sarah is very good at promoting the holiday season. So I just wanted to wish everybody a very, very happy holidays. And for those that celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, who are maybe joining us remotely, and all the best over the holidays, and may it be safe and maybe different with COVID, but hopefully it is just as meaningful to everybody. All the best.
Thank you, Chief, for your update. Seeing it is 10 o'clock, but are there any questions for the Chief and or community concerns anybody would like to bring forward? Arif, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thank you for your presentation. Actually, Chair, just a quick moment to acknowledge the Chief's receipt of a very prestigious award from the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, and I just wanted to congratulate you. I don't think I had time to reach out to you yet, but I did read the memorandum issued by Ms. Young, and well-deserved, and congratulations for all of your work in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I did receive some feedback from other members of the board, but just wanted to indicate that it's really not about one person. It is about the team that I work with to bring some of these issues forward. So I'm very proud to be part of this team. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, I think it's great, Chief, that you're being recognized outside the city of Barrie for your leadership and contribution to policing. So congratulations on behalf of the entire board. Reminder of those upcoming budget meetings, if you could let Sarah know that you may be able to attend. Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
Actually, Mr. Ferguson, it looks like Robert would like to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. Thank you.
Robert, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. Through you, Chair. Actually, Chief, line, and I'll send my question to you directly via email. But thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sorry about that, Robert. Missed your hand up there. Motion to adjourn. Arif?
I'll second.
Robert? Everybody have a wonderful holidays. I guess we'll meet in the new year.
Yes.
So thanks very much. Be safe, everyone.
Best wishes,
Have a
everyone.
great
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.